Game of Thrones Season 7, Episode 4, The Spoils of War has aired, and good God, was it an intense episode. I mean, shit the bed. I was on the edge of my seat in that final battle. The episode kind of started off before it had even aired with some controversy because following the airing of the third episode, it was revealed that hackers had managed to get their hands on the fourth episode and it was distributed online. Despite this, however, Season 7's fourth episode was in fact the most watched episode of Game of Thrones ever. Over 10 million people tuned in to watch it. I mean, how cool is that? Despite the fact it was leaked, it's still got a shit ton of viewers. And, you know, HBO has gone pretty hardcore in reacting to these hackers. They've said they're cracking down on pirates, they're not putting up with this shit anymore. I had one friend who suggested that if he were Mr. HBO, he would just cancel the rest of Game of Thrones to teach everyone a lesson. But I think that would cause riots, the likes of which we've never seen. But regardless of all the politics, let's get on to Episode 4, The Spoils of War. And Christ on a crepe, was it a cracker. The episode kicked off with Jaime and the Lannister forces leaving Highgarden with the gold and, you know, resources that they've taken from the castle. And, the gold is going to be taken back to King's Landing to pay off the debt to the Iron Bank. And of course they've also taken all of Highgarden's, grain supplies and food that will help see King's Landing through the winter. Jaime's looking pretty dour. He obviously learned at the end of the last episode that Olenna Tyrell was responsible for Joffrey's death. Meanwhile, Bronn, it was great to see him. I think that's the first time he's had lines this season. Great to see him again, cracking wise. He always lights the mood. And basically he's saying that Jaime still hasn't delivered on the castle that he was promised. And, Jaime's like, look, dude, I pay you well. Let's win this war, and then I'll give you your castle. We then cut to King's Landing, where it seems the Iron Bank is really backing the Lannisters now. Cersei has promised that she'll be able to pay them, and it looks like she's making good on that promise. And with the Iron Bank on side, that really eliminates a big threat for Cersei. The Iron Bank, one way or another, always gets paid. And, if Cersei had failed to pay them, they would have backed Daenerys and given her a massive advantage. So it looks like this threat that's been hanging over the Lannisters for some time now is finally subsiding. We then cut to Winterfell, where Littlefinger and Bran encounter one another. I don't like Littlefinger, he's slimy, he's sneaky, I want him to get his. Bran is kind of turning into a robot at this point. He's really very strange. Littlefinger talks to him and Bran reveals, he says to Littlefinger, chaos is a ladder, which is something Littlefinger said to Varys a few seasons back. And basically this has fucked with Littlefinger. That look on his face, it just wipes the smugness off. He's beginning to realise Bran knows things he couldn't possibly. And, it's freaking him out. I look forward to seeing how Littlefinger is going to try and scheme his way out of this one, because Bran pretty much knows everything now. He's plugged into the Weirwood net. It was interesting, Littlefinger and Varys, they were kind of spy masters. They have people everywhere, and yet they're completely outclassed by Bran, who is essentially just able to tap into memories, and see everything that's happened. There's no way they can compete with that, especially not Littlefinger. And given everything Littlefinger's done to the Stark family, I really hope Bran makes sure he gets his just desserts. We then see Meera Reed say goodbye to Bran. She's been protecting him all this time. Her brother Jojen died getting him to the Three-Eyed Raven, but now he's safe back at Winterfell and her job's complete, really. And, she says she's leaving, to which Bran is just completely emotionless, despite the fact her brother sacrificed himself for Bran. And understandably, Meera's pretty upset by that. Bran barely even said thank you. I wonder where Meera's going to go next. I hope she's not leaving the show or being written out or anything, because as book readers will definitely know, her father, Howland Reed, is one of the few people that knows the truth of what happened at the Tower of Joy. So I hope we get to see Meera reunite with her father. That's where she says she's going. So I hope we see that. I would love to see Howland Reed introduced in the show. We're still waiting for him to appear in the books. And yeah, I really hope they follow that. They might not, but I hope they do. Then Arya finally turns up at Winterfell. I really like this scene because it reminded me of the scene in season 1 where Arya's exploring and she goes outside of King's Landing, and then when she tries to get back in, the guards don't believe that she's Lord Stark's daughter, and she's like, look, you better let me in or my father will know all about it. And this kind of reminded me of that. I don't know, if I'd have been writing the episode, I would have had her repeat one of the lines, you know, from there, just as more of a callback. But I really like that, you know, these guards of Winterfell, she's been gone so long, they don't even recognise her anymore. You'd think if she could get in anywhere, it'd be Winterfell, but they're like, nope. But again, she manages to talk her way in. I love that when she came in, she sits down and she looks up at the Stark banners that are now on the walls of Winterfell. And I kind of got the feeling she was looking going like, am I even a Stark anymore at this point? You know, she's been through so much and you know, she's been no one and she's had so many aliases. It's like how much wolf is left in her at this point. Sansa finds Arya down in the Winterfell crypts looking at Eddard Stark's statue. They have a reunion. It's nice to see them two together because when we last saw them, you know, in like season 1, they didn't get on very much. They didn't have much in common, but now they've been through so much, they realise the importance of family. Just one thing is that Arya, when she arrives at Winterfell, doesn't know Roderick's dead, you know, doesn't know a lot of things that happened a long time ago to the Stark family. And yet no one seems to have told her that Rickon's dead. And I don't think anyone's told Bran. I suppose Bran would presumably know from being in the Weirwood Net, but Arya doesn't, and no one's told her yet. So I guess we're meant to assume that appeared off screen, but it seemed weird to me that Sansa didn't mention that to her, given that she watched Rickon die. But then we see Arya reunite with Bran as well. Bran is still really creepy, and Arya's like looking at Sansa like, what's up with this dude? We then see Jon take Dany into the mines under Dragonstone, and he shows her all the dragonglass that is there. You know, all this dragonglass ore that's ready to be mined that he can use to fight the White Walkers. He then shows her carvings that were made by the Children of the Forest that show them working with men against the White Walkers. And, you know, this is further proof to Dany that he's not lying, he's not mad, he's telling the truth. There is a threat here that she needs to face. And at the end she says to him, look, if you bend the knee, I will help you. And, you know, I think this is a big thing for Jon. Is he going to bend the knee? I think he probably should. I think he should say to his followers in the North, look, I know you've elected me king in the North, but I think it would be best for all of us if I bend the knee. You know, you told me to lead you and look out for you, and I think that's what we should do. So, you know, and it's clear he's beginning to like her a bit more and thinking he should bend the knee. So we'll see. Dany then hears the news that the taking of Castle Rock has been a double bluff, essentially. Euron has trapped Grey Worm and his forces there, and she gets pissed. She's like, look, I've been listening to all you. She says to Tyrion, to Varys, you know, I've been doing it the way you say, and it hasn't gotten us anywhere. Now we're doing it my way. This reminded me of that scene Olenna had with Dany, where she says, look, you're not a sheep, you're a wolf. I've got by ignoring what wise men say. Do what you want to do. And that's essentially what Dany's doing now. She then accuses Tyrion of, you know, maybe kind of self-sabotaging his plans because he's fighting against Lannister men, which I think is pretty unfair of her. She kind of threw a shit fit there. But yeah, she's like, screw this, I'm out, we're going to sort this now. We then go back to Winterfell, where we see Brienne and Podrick training. Podrick's come a long way since he was a squire for Tyrion. He's definitely learning a bit more about how to be a knight these days. However, Brienne is still kicking his ass, but who can blame it? Brienne is one of the top fighters in Westeros. We then see Arya come out and spar with Brienne. And I have to say, I think I might be in the minority here, but I felt this scene was a bit too cutesy for me. I don't buy that Arya is a good enough swordswoman to take on Brienne. I mean, Brienne was shown to be the Hound, and, you know, he's one of the top tier fighters. And Arya, you know, she's had training, but as a sword fighter, I think, she shouldn't really be that good. Remember, when she was with the Faceless Men, she hid Needle away that whole time, so she wasn't sword training then. And the only time before that we saw her sword training was with Syrio Forel. and when she was on the road with the Hound. So I don't doubt that Arya is a competent fighter, but it just seemed a bit much to me that she would be this, so good as to be able to match Brienne. I mean, yeah, I didn't think that scene was so great. It seemed, as I say, a bit cutesy. I feel like Arya's just suddenly become a bit OP with her sword fighting prowess. But still, it was good to see Brienne showing off some of her skill, and Sansa, Littlefinger were watching. Littlefinger probably seeing that Arya is more of a threat than she looks. Sansa seeing her sister has grown strong. So overall, it was fine, but I don't think I liked that scene as much as most people. Jon and Davos are walking through Dragonstone where they meet Missandei, and Jon questions Missandei as to whether Daenerys is really the great ruler she thinks she is. He even questions if Missandei is still not really a slave in some sense. And Missandei stands by Daenerys. She says, look, if I want to go, she'd bid me good luck. She's adamant that Daenerys is a great queen and that she wants to follow her, and that the people who are following her are doing it out of loyalty, not because they're slaves. Now, this is just something I'm going to refer back to later on in this video, so keep that conversation between Missandei and Jon in mind for later. Theon and what's left of the Greyjoy fleet arrive back at Dragonstone, and Theon comes to shore and must have been pretty surprised to see Jon Snow stood there. I mean, Jon Snow has got a lot of reasons to hate Theon. He betrayed Robb Stark by taking Winterfell with the Ironborn. He, at one point it seemed he'd killed Bran and Rickon. The only thing that Theon really has to redeem himself is the fact that he helped save Sansa from Ramsay. And I thought that was great, the way the first thing Theon says when he sees Jon, he goes, "How's Sansa?" Which I'm sure he was concerned about her, but I also feel like that was kind of him reminding Jon that the only reason Sansa's still alive is because of Theon, and that he's not all bad, and that Jon shouldn't just kill him where he stands. And Jon, he says to him, the fact you helped Sansa is the only reason I'm not killing you. And, it was pretty par for the course of what you'd expect. Jon certainly isn't friendly with Theon, but recognises that he may have had a change of character. We then cut back to Jaime and the wagon trail, which begins one of the best fights I think we've seen in Game of Thrones. It was up there with Battle of the Bastards and Hardhome. I think it was fantastic for so many reasons. Randall Tarly informs Jaime that the Gold has made it safely into King's Landing, and essentially I think we were seeing kind of the last few stragglers of the Lannister men getting their way to King's Landing. And it's interesting there to note that the gold did get to King's Landing, so Cersei does have the gold to pay off the Iron Bank. I was thinking that maybe Dany would get it before it could get to King's Landing and Cersei would be screwed with the Iron Bank, but it seems like she has got that at least. Then all hell breaks loose when the Dothraki, along with Daenerys on Drogon, attacks Jaime and his men. What I loved about this fight is, even though it was spectacular to behold and, it was an incredible battle scene, I really felt like it didn't glorify war or violence. And I think the best battles in any film or television does that, because, war is fucking hell. And, I loved how they showed like 95% of the battle from the perspective of Lannister soldiers just being burnt alive. Hardhome is probably my favourite battle scene in Game of Thrones, and I liked it because it wasn't so much a battle as it was a slaughter, and it was the same here with this battle. It wasn't a fair fight by any means. I mean, you really had to look at Dany, no matter how much you may support her, and those Lannister men had no chance. It's one thing to engage battle, if it had just been the Dothraki fighting, it would have been more even-sided. But, Drogon was just spitting out fire and just obliterating the Lannister men. Jaime tells Bronn to get on the ballista to take down the dragon because arrows are just bouncing off its scales. He says he would do it himself, but his hand, he can't use it properly with only one hand. So I was like, fine, I'll get to it. Jaime rides into battle. It seems like he's gained some skill with his left hand. He was taking out a few people, but he gets his life saved by our boy Dickon, who has kind of been a joke up till now, but proved his mettle there, I think, by helping Jaime out. we then see a fantastic long shot of Bronn trying to get to the ballista. You know, he's first on horse, but his horse gets killed. So then he's, you know, like running through the flames, and there's fire and smoke and embers flying everywhere, and Dothraki trying to kill him. And he's just like running, and he gets to the ballista finally. I love the way he opened it up and only one side opened, and he had to kick open the other side, and then was finally like, come on, you bitch. You know, he was just like so ready to take down that dragon. And I was really worried. I was expecting Bronn to get killed in this episode. Indeed, when I saw him push Jaime out of the way of the dragon fire, I thought he was going to get smoked by pushing Jaime out of the way. But it seems like they both survived, at least for now. I loved how Jaime, you know, for all his sins, you know, he's a very flawed character, but I love the way that when Bronn goes, get back to King's Landing, Jaime's like, fuck that, I'm staying with my men. And I think, you know, say what you will about Jaime, but you cannot accuse him of being a coward. He is brave. Bronn manages to get a shot on Drogon using the ballista, and it seems to do some serious serious damage to Drogon. That's hard to say. You know, it messes up his flight pattern. It hits him just there, just under the wing, and you know, Daenerys and Drogon go spiraling out the sky. They manage to make a safe landing, and Daenerys gets off Drogon, and as she's trying to pull the spear out, Jaime sees her across the battlefield, sees a spear and just thinks, fuck it, I'm just going to nip this in the bud. And, you know, rides to spear down Daenerys. And Tyrion is watching the battle, and he sees Jaime on his horse, and he just goes, you fucking idiot. Like, you know, I thought that scene was, you know, Peter Dinklage, like the emotion on his face, and was just seeing Jaime and just being like, don't be a hero, just surrender. But that's just not in Jaime's nature. I think this is a really interesting episode because you have to remember that not only is Jaime seeing the carnage of the battle he's currently in, his men being burnt alive, but Jaime served Daenerys' father, the Mad King, and he saw the terrible things he did of burning people alive, and eventually he killed him for that. And I think, you know, as I was watching the episode, I was just thinking of the thoughts that must have been going through Jaime's mind at that point, just remembering all the horrors he saw and the horrors he's seeing now. And he must look at that and see Daenerys and think she's no different. She's burning people as well. And I think that's why he felt so compelled to take her out, and even if it meant his own life, to try and stop her before, you know, she inflicted further damage. So I think it's really understandable that Jaime was so desperate to try and kill her. Drogon sees him coming towards her. It's just about to spit some fire at him when Bronn from out of nowhere dives in the way, pushes Jaime off his horse, and they both fall into the river, I think it was, not a lake. And the last shot is Jaime just falling into the abyss, weighed down by his armour, which I thought was very similar to the shot where Bran falls out the tower in season 1 when Jaime pushes him. So I thought that was a great parallel there. And yeah, I mean, I don't think Jaime's dead. I don't think he's going to drown. I think the next episode he'll be fished out just in the nick of time. And I guess now he's a captive of Daenerys, a bit like how he was captured by Robb Stark. I really hope that's the case. I hope he gets to reunite with Tyrion and have some words with him. And I hope that he gets to speak with Daenerys and be, you know, he's one of the few people that can tell her firsthand what a monster her father was. And I hope she listens, you know. For all his sins, he's got things to say about that she needs to hear. Now, earlier in the video, I said, remember that conversation Missandei had about being loyal to Daenerys, and I'm coming back to it now. Here's a little theory for you guys that like that. Okay, so it seems to me like Jaime is now a prisoner of Daenerys, okay? And people have to wonder, well, what's going to go on for that? Is she going to execute him? Will he manage to free himself? Who knows? Who knows? However, some kind of theories have been circulating online that I think are worth going over. Now, it's worth noting that with Game of Thrones, there's a lot of kind of history repeating itself, if you see what I mean. Jaime was captured by Robb Stark and managed to escape. And, you know, Robb Stark's mother, Catelyn, allowed him to escape. And now he's been made prisoner of Daenerys. There are a lot of parallels like that go through Game of Thrones. Time is a flat circle, man. And, you know, I think maybe something similar could happen again. Now, I wonder if maybe Tyrion might free Jaime. Perhaps Dany will insist on killing Jaime, not seeing his good side. and Tyrion will feel compelled to free Jaime because Jaime freed Tyrion when he was in prison for supposedly killing Joffrey. Now, that's one theory, could happen, who knows. However, I think there is some foreshadowing that suggests that Missandei might free Jaime. Now, why would Missandei free Jaime? She has no relation to him. Think about it. Grey Worm is currently, essentially a prisoner at Castle Rock with Euron's forces surrounding the rock. She loves Grey Worm. She cares a great deal about him. Perhaps she'll free Jaime in order for him to then free Grey Worm. It'll be like a trade, like when Jaime was freed in exchange for Sansa and Arya. Maybe it'll be like that. I know that on its own doesn't sound so likely just because she loves Grey Worm. However, in a previous season of Game of Thrones, Daenerys specifically says to Missandei, "Never betray me." And then, in this last episode, we saw Jon questioning Missandei's loyalty to Daenerys. So I kind of wonder, will Missandei free Jaime thinking Daenerys would forgive her for it, and Daenerys will just go apeshit, I feel like there have been some kind of seed spread that suggests that a betrayal could be coming for Dany, whether it be Tyrion or whether it be Missandei. But, I feel like she better keep a close eye on Jaime when he's in prison, because I think there are a few people that wouldn't mind seeing him freed, for it might benefit them, and who knows, Missandei might be the one to do that. I think that would be a cool twist on her character, and yeah, I would like to see that, but I really hope we get to see Jaime and Daenerys converse with one another. So that wraps it up for episode 4. I thought it was a cracking episode. I believe, last time I checked at least, it was the highest rated Game of Thrones episode on IMDb. 9.9 I think it had. Perhaps it's gone down since the time of this recording, but overall I think it was a cracking episode, very tight. There was very little for me to complain about. I can be quite pernickety with these things, as I'm sure you're aware. But other than the Arya Brienne scene, which I didn't hate, I just didn't think was that good. I thought it was a really great episode, and I thought that fight scene was done so well. All the actors involved, Emilia Clarke, Jerome Flynn, Nikolai Coster-Waldau, they did a fantastic job, and the action was so intense. I felt like I could feel the heat on me in battle. I think it did a great job of not glorifying war, and I was watching it just thinking like, fuck, I would hate to be there. I thought it was fantastic, and I think Game of Thrones is going to win a shit ton of Emmys again. But yeah, fantastic Spoils of War. I really look forward to the next episode to see what happens, and tune in to see me review that. Vala Magoulis.